Hello, Jessica here with my first video for Hero Arts. Today I'm going to show you how to make an interactive slider card using our nesting circle infinity dies and the gorgeous paper layering koi from our newest release. So let's get started. First, I die cut the paper layering koi from watercolor paper and use a water brush to paint him. I start with cadmium red scarlet hue to add a bright pop of color to my fish. I also pop up the dorsal fin so I won't accidentally paint over it. Next, I soften the edges with a little quinacridone gold. Finally, I add a little moon glow for contrast. Off camera, I realized I forgot to paint the fish's face, so later I added a little more quinacridone gold after I assembled my card. My favorite part of the paper layering koi are the scales of the fish. The die cuts the shape of the scales but leaves them intact. For a little more dimension, I take a stylus and pop up all of the scales from the underside of the fish. I also lightly curl and pop parts of the tail and fins. Next, I want to create a softly watercolored background. I smush Salty Ocean Distress ink onto a craft mat and wet a piece of watercolor paper thoroughly. I add a wash of bright color to the middle of the paper and then use clean water to blend out and soften the edges. Finally, I use the tip of a barely damp paintbrush to paint thin lines onto the damp paper for the look of ripples on the water. Since the paper is still slightly damp, the paint feathers out and softens the lines. After the paint is dry, I flick water droplets across the paper. The water moves the distress ink around, which results in white spots across the paper that resemble water bubbles. I repeat the same process using gold metallic paint for a little extra shimmer. Once everything is totally dry, I place the paper in my MISTI and use a magnet to hold it in place. My sentiment is from the Color Layering Koi stamp set. After prepping the watercolor paper with my powder tool, I stamp the sentiment in Versamark and then heat emboss it with gold embossing powder. Then I use my nesting circle infinity dies to create a slider channel. I use the 4th and 6th largest circles to die cut my watercolor paper. I also use the 2nd smallest circle die to cut 4 circles from scrap white cardstock. I adhere those circles together with a foam dot to create the sliders for my fish. First, I adhere the circle outline to a piece of white cardstock, cut slightly smaller than an A2 panel. I will eventually adhere this entire piece to a card base, and using a smaller panel ensures that nothing will stick out unevenly if I don't align the layers perfectly. Then I adhere the outside piece of the watercolor paper over the circle outline with a double layer of foam mounting tape. Make sure you leave enough room on the outside panel to allow the slider circle to move freely. I am careful to line up the panel as accurately as possible to match the watercolored background. Next, I adhere the inside of the circle using a double layer of foam mounting tape. The inside and outside pieces of watercolor paper create the channel for my slider. Then I add a little adhesive to the top of each slider circle and tuck them inside the channel. The circles are slightly larger than the channel, so they won't fall out and will allow the koi to move freely. Finally, I adhere the koi to the sliders. You could use a single slider circle, which would allow the koi to spin in a circle and slide along the channel. I want a more serene look for my card, so I chose to use 2 sliders, which kept my fish on a smooth glide around the sentiment. All of the products I used on my card today are now available in the Hero Arts shop. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, have a great day and happy crafting. Bye!